Bob Longfellow here, interrupting the alien invasion on both coasts to bring you this Channel 4 Action News breaking story. The Blood Grinder case has finally brought up some good news. No, the Blood Grinder has not been caught, but the lead detective on the case has been fired. That's right, Detective Dick Snickers was dragged kicking and screaming out of Precinct 13, thrown out on his ass, and asked politely to step down. This should come as no surprise to anyone with a fully operating brain, as the 26th victim of the Blood Grinder was discovered last night. After 6 very unproductive years on the trail of the Blood Grinder, it became painfully obvious to Captain Griffith Inspector what we citizens have known for some time: that Detective Dick Snickers is a no-good drunk who has no business being on the police force. For more, we go live to Barry Chippendale, who is on the scene.
Well, hello, Bob.
Hello, Barry. Barry, with Detective Dick Snickers gone, any idea on who's going to step up?
Well, nothing yet, Bob. As of this moment, Snickers is still standing atop the main steps of the precinct, screaming at the top of his lungs.
Any idea of what he's saying?
Well, it's hard to say, Bob. When Snickers was removed from the building earlier, so were his personal belongings, which ended up just being a crate of whiskey. Last I counted, he's thrown 3 bottles at the building and consumed 4. Whatever it is he's screaming right now sounds like gibberish to me.
We'll be sure to get a translator down there immediately. Thanks for the update, Barry.
You got it, dude.
Now, it occurred to me that in the middle of all this commotion, we here at Channel 4 Action News haven't really gotten to the heart of the story: the victims.
Bob? Dick Snickers just tumbled down the steps in a drunken heap.
Thanks, Barry. We've moved on.
Right. Goodbye.
As we now stand at a body count of 26, perhaps it's time we take a closer look at the victims to find out what's really been going on. Now, all 26 of the victims were women. Most of them were beautiful, and, to put it delicately, were whores. Some would say these would be acts of misogyny. I, however, would not. Aside from the missing body parts and the mutilated piles of ground-up flesh, no signs of assault or rape have been found on these women. For further insight, we are joined by real-life prostitute and all-around good girl, Flower McSugartits. Ms. McSugartits, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
You know that's not true.
But it is. You're such a strapping and powerful-looking man. It would be any woman's pleasure to speak to you.
Do you really think so?
Of course I do. I've never been one to lie, especially not to someone like you with your piercing eyes and well-deserved sense of superiority.
Well, I am superior to most men.
Listen, why don't you come down to the Beltway Motel in about an hour? Bring that huge roll of $50 in your pocket and some money. The Bank of McSugartits is accepting deposits of all kinds.
That sounds perfectly reasonable. I'll see you then. Well, there you have it, folks. Well, until next time, I'm Bob Longfellow, bringing my action to the Beltway Motel.
Hey guys, it's Dave Conti.
I'm Nick Schwartz.
And this is Matt Bronsdorf, and welcome to Blodcast Week 12.
As of this filming, we are 2 weeks away from the deadline, folks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Alright, I'm sorry. Let it be known, though, that if the campaign is not successful, as we said in last week's episode, regardless, we're going to shoot next spring. We'll just have to find a way to make funding, to collect our funding another way.
So this week we watched Speed, arguably the greatest film of all time.
Arguably the greatest film of all time.
It's a light concept, and it's executed really well. It's a bus going fast, and it can't not go fast. I love films with simple concepts because it's just like, you can do so much with a simple concept sometimes. When a director or a writer takes a simple concept and really escalates it the way they do with Speed, that to me that's gold.
The whole movie is built around a moving bus, so the camera work has to keep up with the bus, but also it's got to be exciting because the pace of the movie is just so fast. There's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of crane shots on the highway, and it's easy to keep up with. Like even the photography on the bus is so steady.
One thing that's always been consistent with Jan de Bont's work in Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, Basic Instinct, he loves the lens flares, and They're all motivated lens flares, and for the most part, you know, you don't notice them. You go to a J.J. Abrams movie and the lens flares are like this. I love it, but it's like this. But here, like, the lens flares are always good. There's a lot of, he uses fluorescence a lot because they give off, like, this glow on screen. In addition to that, there's a lot of aerial photography. There's a bunch of really, really cool shots where the camera's clearly in a helicopter and we're looking at the bus, and then another helicopter will fly right underneath, you know, right through frame. Those shots are just really cool because there's so much going on in them, but they're steady and you can see everything.
The film utilizes practical effects wonderfully. They actually launched that bus. They built a brand new bus that can go 70 miles an hour for the sole purpose of launching it over a fucking gap.
Well, the gap isn't actually there.
Right, but
they just launched it off of a ramp, and then they actually digitally removed the bridge to make it look like a gap.
Yeah, it's seamless. That's a great example of like, that's good digital effects. You know, I didn't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was an actual gap, and then finding out it wasn't. It's pretty cool. But the fact that they did this actual effect with the bus is great. It just sells it so much better, and everything explodes in real life. I think the subway disaster at the end, that's all miniatures.
That's all,
obviously.
Yeah, that's all miniatures.
But
it looks fucking good.
It looks great. Because actual, tangible objects are being interacted with in real life. It's not some guy keyframing motion on a computer. I mean, I always harp on about practical effects, but I'm so passionate about doing everything practical that I can't not discuss it. If Speed was remade today, the whole fucking thing would be shot on a green screen. The bus would be sitting on a sound stage. This technology didn't really exist to the capacity it does now. Back then, he had to do it that way, and having to, you know, forcing yourself into that mindset is what we're going to be doing. And I think it's gonna give you guys a better product.
So this week and next week, you're going to see a return of people that we respect. And this week's return of someone that we respect is Mark Mancina. And I will go so far as to say this. In my opinion, Speed, the score by Mark Mancina, is the finest action score ever written. Ever. There is so much going on with this score. It's not just, you know, one or two themes. The movie itself starts out with an overture. How many movies do you see anymore that start with overtures? There's no patience for that anymore. The movie starts, you get the title, go. But this one is a perfect example of what I think is the best way to start a movie like this. You want the audience to sit there and to settle in and get ready for what they're gonna experience. So there's this huge overture opening credit sequence where the camera's just flying down an elevator shaft, but you're hearing little bits and pieces of the entire score that Mark Mancina is going to be blasting your ears with later during the action. Do 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 do, and it's such an excellent way to start such an intense movie because the audience is sitting there absorbing this music, absorbing what kind of movie, what kind of experience they should be expecting, and then they get that experience because the movie itself matches that music. That's all we want to do with the Blood Grinder score. We want a score that you're going to remember, and we want a score that keeps the tension going.
So this week we have a painting for you guys. We haven't had one in a few weeks, but here you go. We got a good one this week from Evan. This is a concept painting of a scene from the Blood Grinder.
One of the earlier scenes.
One of the earlier scenes where Mamrie Jones is attacked by the Blood Grinder in a moving vehicle, no less. So we felt it was appropriate given the theme of moving vehicles this week.
This scene is also a good example of how we're going to enhance what was in the original film. In the original feature, Lucy Parks is a prostitute friend of Mamrie Jones, and she's out on the street hooking, as they say, and the Blood Grinder pulls up, she gets in, and then he grinds her head and so on and so forth. Now, that scene is essentially the exact same scene that's occurring in the new film. However, in the new film, you've got Mamrie who's actually there sitting in the back seat and the car is in motion. So there's an example of, in the first film it was a steady, the car was just parked there and the scene occurred, and now we're just going to add a couple elements to it to make it 10 times more intense than it was in our original film.
This is our action and horror scene. This is going to be the fusion of action and horror.
Yeah.
That we're going for the Blood Grinder. It's almost like these are where the two worlds collide more than anything else in the movie.
That about wraps it up for this week, guys. Next week we will be discussing my #1 action movie of all time. I don't know about it.
It's in my top 20, 15, 10, and 5.
So that's suspense for you. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
So yeah.
Bye.
Bye.